So now there are a few more container rules we need to add. So let's go back to our partial and let's scroll down and grab the primary content rule here, this grouped rule, and the two rules below. So let's go ahead and select these, cut them, and I'm going to paste them right beneath the first rule. All right, so now we can go ahead and save our containers partial and close it out. And finally, let's move inside our components directory. And this is where we're going to add the styles for our site's standalone components or modules. These are the smaller reusable parts of our sites like buttons, icons, typography, and so forth. So first, let's open up our buttons partial. And back in style.scss, let's go ahead and grab this callout rule here and call it a button. So let's cut it out, paste it inside the buttons partial. I'll save it, close it out, and let's open up icons. And for icons, we're going to grab the arrow rule. So these are the styles for our arrow image. So cut it out and paste it inside the icons partial. And I'll save and close. And finally, let's open up our typography partial. And this will contain all of the typography styles in our page. So back over in style.scss, let's scroll up and grab the intro rule, the main title rule, and the main heading rule. And we'll also want the web fonts. So let's select everything beginning from the web fonts all the way down to the intro rule. And I'll cut that out and paste it inside our typography partial. I'll go ahead and remove this comment, clean things up a little bit. And now I'll just save and close it out. All right, so it looks like we have everything in the right place. And we'll get back to these remaining styles in just a bit. So as you can see, the goal is to keep partial files small and readable. So now, if you're wondering about these index.scss partials inside each of the directories, well, I'm actually using these files to import the partial files from each directory into one file. So here's an example of one of them, which is importing the base partial. The components index is importing all the partials in the components directory, and the same with our index partial inside the layout directory. So now, instead of importing every single partial inside our global application style sheet, we only need to import the single index reference from each directory into application.scss. So this makes everything a lot more manageable. So now nothing's compiling to plain CSS just yet. In fact, if we preview our project, we can see that all the styles in our page are gone. But no worry, because what we need to do next is go back to application.scss. So this is our global Sass file. And we're going to use Sass's import directive to sort of pipe all the files into this one style sheet, which will be great for the browser because it will only require one request to the server. All right, so let me go ahead and open one of these index files, and let me copy this comment flag and paste it inside our application.scss file. And let me just change the comment to say global imports. So it's important to note that when importing partial files, the order in which we import them is important since it does affect the cascade in the final output. So we need to follow our original CSS order as close as possible. So first, we're going to import all the base styles. So let's type @import, then a set of quotes followed by a semicolon. And inside the quotes, we're going to define the path to the index partial inside the base directory. So let's say base/index. I'll just go ahead and copy this, paste two of them right below. And the next one will be for our layout styles. And finally, our components. So as we can see, we want the base styles first, then the layout styles followed by the components. So now when we save and compile all our Sass and go back to the browser and refresh, we can see how Sass brings our styles back again, and it actually outputs all the partials we just created into our main style sheet. So if I open up application.css, there's all our compiled CSS. And actually, since we did change our style sheet name from style.css to application.css, we can actually remove the old reference to style.css. So let me select the style.css map file, right-click, delete. Then I'll select style.css, right-click, and delete. We no longer need those since we're now using application.css. And that's all coming from the application.scss global file. All right, so it looks like we're good to go. So this is a suggested way of organizing your partial files. And you can do things a little differently if you'd like. Now, even if we don't use any of these Sass syntax, which we haven't yet, you can see that at the very least, it helps keep our project organized and easily maintainable. So again, we could maybe stop here and say, well, okay, we have our Sass project all done, so let's call it a day. But there's still lots more we can do to optimize our CSS, even with the most basic Sass features. So soon, we'll see how variables, mixins, placeholders, and nesting can really speed up our workflow.